Hi everybody. So we're back to this painting. Today it looks really bright the way the light's hitting it today. I'm going to be working in more misty around the mountains. That's the goal anyway. So we've got the nice bright yellow, but I want to bring in some misty coming behind the little outcroppings of the mountains. That's the goal today. So to do that, we're going to use gesso again, and then we'll need a couple of those other colors we were working with, which was Payne's Gray. I'll put a little bit of that in there, and let's see, we had the dark green that I don't have that much of, the deep green. I have a little bit there, so that's good. And then the yellow ochre that I have to use my little pliers to open. The sun came out today. It's starting to warm up a little bit. But next week we still have a little cold weather coming in again, according to the weather folks. So usually once you're past the 15th of April, things are pretty good, but I'm going to resist planting a few things. Okay, so I'm just going to start with a little bit of gesso. I'm going to bring it in up over this little rock outcrop, and also my brush is pretty wet. And I'm going to bring it on up there a little bit more because I want the mist to be falling in between the crevices. And I'm working it kind of in a circle-y feel. And dry it a little, brush a little bit more, and then kind of just work it in like that. Grab a little bit more, and it's the rough brush that's been opened up like that I'm using. And it looks pretty heavy-handed at the moment, but that will fade and you'll see all the color behind it. I'm going to dry my brush more, come in and pull it off a little bit like that. Okay, now I'm going to grab a different brush. This is an angled brush that comes together quite nicely here. It's got a good edge. I'm going to take a little bit of the Payne's Gray, and I'm going to come up in here where this rocky outcrop was, because I want that to sit on top of that mistiness there. There we go. And then I'm going to bring in some green and some ochre, yellow ochre, and then a little bit of Payne's Gray, and then another bit of gesso, which makes just kind of a weird little gray greenish, and I'm going to bring it in here with the gesso places here because I want to keep the color. I don't want it to be completely white there, so we're just going to bring that in. A little more gesso and a little more Payne's Gray on top of that as well. I had too much on my brush, so I'd wipe that off. There we go, because we want it to blend in with what's going on here. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to come in again. We're going to do the bright green and the yellow ochre and a little bit of black, or Payne's Gray. I'm going to bring that in here, right there on the top here, because we want that green to be showing off right there. And a little more of the ochre on top of that green right there. And what happens is that brings that outcrop, rock outcrop there, right out of that mistiness. So now we're going to blend in that gray, the top, the Payne's gray top, into the color, so it doesn't look like a outlined picture. Now we're going to go back and I'm going to use the same brush to work in some more of the mist, because I want that color that's left over on that brush. We're just going to mist it on in here and do a little mist at the bottom of it and kind of overflowing it right here at the bottom. Bring it up there. Okay, so that brings some mist in here, and then I'm going to grab a little bit more with a little more of the Payne's gray in there for down here at the bottom. And I work that into that yellowy green. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to move the painting just this way a little bit, because I'm going to work on this area here. So again, we're going to take this mistiness kind of coming up here. I'm going to switch brushes again. I'm going to go back to this rough brush and get some of the water off of it. That it was sitting in the little water container. So we're going to work in that mistiness right there, just a little bit, not a whole lot right there. We want this misty to float around that outcropping right there. So it's like coming up over the mountain and into this valley where we have a castle hidden away. Because all castles need protection, and it's good to use the mountains to do that. In fact, I like how that looks, so I'm going to kind of bring it over here as well. I like how it kind of comes around the top of it. That looks good. Okay, so now we're going to switch brushes again to the angled brush. And we're going to bring some more detail, like right here. There's a kind of a rocky ledge there. And really there's no reason for it to be there. It's just in my imagination. And it just feels right for this particular painting. Excuse me. One of the problems with my videoing, and I notice when I play it back and listen to it, is I'm always clearing my throat. I have so many allergies. I've tried different things and not a whole lot helps it. Okay, so right here, this section, I like the idea of putting some green and yellow in, I think. I really like it right here for sure, but I don't want it to be super bright. So I'm going to come back with some more Payne's gray and darken it down. Next, grab some gesso, and then I work all those colors together. There we go. And the tone on that is too greenish, so I'm going to bring some more of the yellow ochre in there on top of that. And we're going to take the gesso and we're going to mist it right along here. This is going to get misty there. Okay, I'm going to switch brushes again. Go with that big fat one again and get the paint off of it. Water off of it. I said paint, I meant water. And then I'm just going to start tapping in because it waters it down even though I got most of the water off of it. And I grab a little more gesso because I want to whiten that a little bit. It's a little too yellow. Okay, I'm going to switch brushes again and go back to the angled brush. And I'm just going to kind of soften this with a little water. And we're going to fade that mist in there. I'm going to grab a little more gesso so I can whiten it a little more. And then that outcrop's starting to disappear, so I'm going to go back and grab some more Payne's Gray, and we're going to shade it in a little more. And that way you can see it's there. Then I'm going to come back and tap, tap, tap. There we go. And you got some misty around that one, just sticking out right there. Okay, so now I'm going to mark this edge a little bit because I kind of like how that delineates right there. And I think we're going to bring more color in. We'll take that green, the yellow, and the Payne's Gray. We're going to, well, that's just looking Payne's Gray, doesn't it? Here we go. Now we're going to color it in. We're going to go right along here, this edge right there. And then I'm going to grab a little Payne's Gray in with that yellow. Bring that yellow in a little stronger. I'm happy with that color. That's a good color right there. Now I'm going to grab some gesso, and we're going to start just softening it right there along that edge here. There we go. Got some good mist coming in there on top of that. Now we're going to grab back the Payne's Gray because I had a little outcropping right here that I liked. Just kind of a mountain jaggedy piece. And I don't like how it looks now. So I'm going to take back the gesso here. I just gave it the wrong shape. So now it's just an indication that something might have been there, which is fine. I just kind of move what I'm doing. If I don't like how it turns out, then we just give it an indication, and that's fine. Just like the Bob Ross, the happy painter, he used to say, just happy mistakes, that's all. Happy trees, mistakes, happy mistakes turn into happy trees, so it's fine. Or a happy bush, happy flower, whatever. Here we have happy mist. Okay, so I've got that corner. I feel like we've got enough mist coming around. Because we want this mountain. I'm going to switch brushes again to the big one. So we want the mist to be not uniform but balanced with the rest of where the mist is. Uniform doesn't really happen in nature. So even though there is a bigger pattern to it, we don't usually see it with our bare eyes. So I'm just kind of softening that. Now I'll work on this down here later, but I'm just softening in this mist that's kind of coming over the mountain, but also it's going to be hanging out over the water here later. So now I'm going to move to this edge, and we're going to bring in a little more misting through here, right here, and around these little pieces here. And I'll switch brushes again. The big brush works for, you know, certain areas, but when you're working in real small spaces like this, and the fine detail, it's good to have a smaller brush that you're working with. Okay, I'm going to grab a little water. You took too much off the brush. And I'm going to soften that up here on this edge. Now this part right here where it's nice and bright, I'm going to leave it alone because I kind of want just one spot that's really bright, and then I have a little bit of bright here, which I think I want a little more bright, so I'm going to bring in some more of this color with the Payne's Gray a little bit. To balance it, like I said, it's not uniform, but balance. So we have a nice bright spot right there and right here. And I might even bring a little more in up here, because we want little pieces popping out of the mist. And I might change my mind later. We'll see. Okay. So I kind of like just how it's sitting the way it is over here, but I'm going to add a little more mist coming up the wall a little bit right there. And then maybe just a little mist here on the top. It's falling into the valley here. Then we have a little color sticking out of there. So I think I'm pretty happy with that as far as mist goes. Looking for a couple other places, some mist there. Like it's, you know, in the clouds. But then the clouds come down up over the mountains. So as that dries, then I'll decide how much more that I want to do. So the next thing is I've noticed this area here in the sky needs to be softened a little bit. So I'm going to take some gesso over that. And up here. And this is when you can sort of bring in a few little clouds, but you don't want to have a specific brush stroke to it, because you don't want it to look like a painting. It is a painting, but you don't want to see the brush strokes. At least that's how I feel about it with what I'm doing. So I soften all the edges with a damp, dry brush. Okay, so that's as far as we go today. And I'll probably be doing more work on it after I'm done videotaping it. Like I said, this one's not a straight from the beginning to the end kind of thing, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of share it with you. So I'll probably be working a little bit on this pathway, because that's beginning to get to where the focal point of this painting will be. This is actually a pretty complicated one, but I really enjoy doing it, so, and I'm excited that I feel like it again. And some of the work that we're doing here will be covered up by part of that focal point, but, and I do, you know, think about it a little bit as I'm doing it. Where does the focal point, where is it going to be sitting in? So there's certain details that I find as I'm working that I like a lot, that I did, and I don't want to cover up. For example, I don't know if you can see it too easily, but I have a real faded piece of mountain right here, and I've got this outcrop right here, and this area right here is actually my favorite part, other than the flowing here. So when I do this focal point that's going to be here, I'm going to be putting a entranceway to this castle. I'm going to place it so that it doesn't cover up where I have a few favorite places. So that's kind of how I work on that. And then we'll be working on the lake a little bit as well, and bringing more misting over that lake, which I find kind of difficult. So it'll be interesting to see how I accomplish that. But it's fun to be working on something again. So for like there, it kind of brings a little misty over it. And then you also want to delineate that, okay, this is a lake edge here, and then I'll come in here, do a bit of a lake edge. But that's about it for today. Thank you for hanging out, and I'll see you soon. Bye.